Councillors, chief officers, ladies and gentlemen, please be upstanding to receive the worshipful, the Mayor of Knowsley, Councillor Jackie Harris.
Colleagues, welcome to this meeting and welcome to everyone in the public gallery. Can I remind everyone that all mobile phones should be turned off to silent for the duration of the meeting? And can I ask all members to ensure that they use their microphones? Please note that as usual the Council will be filming and recording this meeting. This will include people sitting in the public gallery, and a copy of the film will be uploaded to the website. Can I also refer to everyone to the order of the papers that has been placed in front of them and on each seat in the public gallery. Colleagues, before we move to the first item of the business, I would like to take this opportunity to remember Councillor Alan Arby, former Councillor Diane Reid and Bill Brennan, who passed away recently. They each served the residents of Knowsley over the substantial period of time, 8 years, 23 years and 25 years. Respectfully, and Diane was also the Mayor of Knowsley in the year of 2010 to 2011. I know that they will be sadly missed. In addition, I would like to highlight the Holocaust Memorial Day that took place last Monday. This is an international day of remembrance in relation to the Holocaust and subsequent genocides. You will see that there is a notice of motion on the subject included on the agenda for consideration later on this evening. Colleagues, can I ask you all to join me in a minute's silence as a sign of respect for all our former colleagues and also to express our support for the Holocaust on Memory Day. Thank you, colleagues. Item 1, minutes. Are the minutes agreed?
Madam,
Yes.
I did put in a request to speak. May I speak on the minutes? Points of order, if necessary.
On the XC, yes.
Thank you. Previously I had an issue with the minutes and had to be resolved in these papers, but there is a minute from the last meeting I disagree with. It's minute 22, declaration of interest, and I think, it affects people who signed the declaration of interest tonight. but on minute 22 does not accurately describe my interest. The word that are used are that I receive an allowance from Knowsley Town Council. Well, to receive or received is past tense, is to accept delivery of, to take, to be in one's hands or possession. Now, what I did was follow the independent remuneration panel's recommendations, which were engaged by this council, who recommend that town and parish councillors don't receive an allowance. So for this year at Knowsley Town Council, I did not claim or receive the allowance which I was entitled to. What worries me is that in terms of public perception, from the minutes set out before you, you would think that I had received or taken the allowance, and that is clearly not the case. So the minute requires clarification or amending, otherwise it is inaccurate and misleading. I'm sure the council can correct this by retaining its reputation for accuracy. If not, I would want to have my name recorded as voting against these minutes, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Do you have anything you wish to say?
Yeah, we can look to get that matter amended, and it's up to members to declare their interest as it is, so we will look to do that.
Thank you. Item 2, declarations of interest.
On that note, there are a number of declarations of interest made this evening, as referenced on the order paper, and these will be published in the minutes at the next meeting.
Thank you, Gemma. Item 3, Mayor's communications. Can you note these, please? Item 3B, definition of community achievements. Colleagues, before moving to the first item of recognition this evening, I wanted to bring your attention to a number of people with links to Knowsley who were named in the Queen's New Year's Honours List 2020. These are former Knowsley Council employee Tracy Fishwick. Tracy is now a Transform Lives company at Blackburn House in Liverpool and was awarded an OBE for her services to unemployed people in the North West. Next is Anne Marr, Chief Exec of Knowsley St Helens Hospital Trust, who was also awarded an OBE for her service to the NHS leadership. And finally, Christine Hayward, Clinical Director of the Willbrook Hospice, who was also awarded a BEM for services to end-of-life care. I am sure you will agree that these awards are well deserved and ask you to join me in congratulating each and every one in their individual achievements. So can I say thank you, and can I invite Councillor Graham Morgan to say a few words, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Colleagues, as a council, we are extremely fortunate to be able to rely on the skills, connections and the hard work of a wide variety of volunteers across Knowsley who make uniquely valuable contributions to helping our communities to prosper. I know that such good deeds are common occurrences, but they should not be taken for granted. It is important that the council recognises and thanks our community champions. Jan Owens and their team of volunteers are the heart and soul of Swanside Community Centre. They are just the type of community champions we should acknowledge. Jan works tirelessly to coordinate a programme of activities to benefit the whole of the community. The listed events and activities which Jan and her colleagues have organised are endless, but I'd just like to highlight a few. Through Jan's efforts, the Swanside Community Centre provides much needed resources for all of the community, ranging from breakfast clubs for children, a homework club for young people, and lunch clubs for older residents. This also includes a team of volunteers providing line dancing, a toddlers group, family and tots group, youth provision, youth club provision and exercise classes. Jan has organised a weekly event for people living with dementia. This also involves refreshments and singing and dancing, and has been proved an enjoyable experience for everybody involved. Working with the Swanside elected members, Jan has secured funding to create a new community garden, a fantastic environment for residents, old and young, to spend quality time, which also has a haven for wildlife. Furthermore, following a spate of burglaries, car thefts, Jan spent her free time, wherever she had free time, to set up a coordinate and neighbourhood watch scheme. This has proved hugely successful and helped police to reduce incidents of crime. However, not content with looking after her own community, Jan has decided to link with a number of other neighbourhood watch schemes to share experiences and broadcast positive messages about the scheme. Also, colleagues, Jan is an award-winning poet, and she's asked me to read out a poem that she wrote last night, as you do, to celebrate tonight's achievement. I'll try my best, Jan. The power of people who stand together with the same vision and aims. The strength of people who stand side by side for positive change. The gift of people who lift up hearts and listen to what others say. The love of people who hold people's hands and brighten up their day. The people who work to make communities great and work tirelessly to make things right. The compassionate people who listen and will always fight for your fight. The driving people who work so hard to make the place we live better for all. The hearted people will always be there to catch you when you fall. People who are dedicated to make future this as a community that is tighter because they believe this is right. The commitment of volunteers who work tirelessly and endlessly to make their life, every life matter, whatever that life may be. They work for no other reason than to make a difference and make it right. And we are so proud of these wonderful people as we celebrate them tonight. Colleagues, I would like you to ask me to join in thanking Jan and her fantastic team of volunteers on behalf of the Council for their outstanding contribution to the Swanside community. Thank you.
Their volunteers to come and receive a plaque of their volunteer work within their community. Thank you. Can I now invite everybody to sit down? Can I now invite Frank Walsh, please, to speak on behalf of our other colleague in the audience who's going to be rewarded with a thank you for the services rendered in France.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Colleagues, we are very privileged to have Huyton resident and Armed Forces veteran George Bleasdale here with us this evening as our guest. I'm sure George won't mind me telling you that he is 94 years young, and in fact many of you might have seen him recently featured in the Liverpool Echo and on the Knowsley News. In 1943, when George was just 17 3/4 years old, he enlisted in the Royal Navy. The Second World War was raging, and George, despite his youth, he was keen to play his part. After his basic training, he was deployed to the Light Coastal Forces aboard a naval motor torpedo boat. In June 1944, he was still only 19. George and the crew of MTB 710 were deployed to escort the American Rangers landing craft to Omaha Beach for the D-Day landings. I think it is fair to say that what happened next, even though well recorded and reported, is still way beyond most of our imaginations. To be in the presence of someone who lived through that experience is a great honour for all of us. But why we are here talking about this today in particular, we have to ask, well, more than 75 years after this historic event, in November last year, George received France's highest order of merit, the Legion of Honour, for his contribution to the liberation of France during the Second World War. What a very well deserved honour. So, that's why we've invited George here this evening, to congratulate him on his award, to formally recognise his courage and bravery, and importantly, to thank him for his service. George, on behalf of everyone here this evening, and indeed the Borough of Knowsley, thank you very much. Thank you, Madam
Now I'd like to invite George up to present him with a certificate in his recognition of his achievements. George, if you'd like to come forward. Can I invite Councillor Jane Ashton to say a few words, please, on the next group.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You may have noticed a very familiar face at the back of the chamber here tonight. Yvonne Ledgerton has joined us this evening, and she's clearly missed us so much that she's been in such a rush to get back to another council meeting. But I'm delighted that she's been able to join us here tonight. As many of you will be aware, Yvonne retired from Knowsley Council at the end of last month. Due to the general election, our December council meeting was cancelled, so we didn't have a chance to say a proper goodbye. So we've invited Yvonne back to do just that here tonight. As I say, I'm delighted that she's accepted the invitation. Yvonne has worked in local government since March 1980, over 39 years. I guess she doesn't want us to remind her of that length of time. 29 of those 39 years she spent in Knowsley, since October the 1st, 1990. As many of you know, Yvonne was a great support to members during her time here, and she will be missed. Madam Mayor, I know you'll join me in thanking Yvonne for all her hard work, support and service to Knowsley over the years and wish her a long, happy and healthy retirement. Well done, Yvonne.
I would now like to present Yvonne with a certificate in recognition of her contributions to Knowsley. Thank you, colleagues. Item 4, we have public question time. 2 public questions have been received. Can I invite Mr. Golding to ask his question first, please? That much underway.
It was stated at a recent Sustainable Borough Scrutiny Committee meeting.
Sorry, can we check the mic? We can't hear you.
See the red light on? Yeah, it is. Try again. It was stated, okay? No?
Can't hear you. Switch, come just maybe here.
It was stated at a recent Sustainable Borough Scrutiny Committee meeting that other neighbouring authorities work alongside United Utilities to bait or poison within the sewers to try to control the rat population below ground, and that they match funds to get this done, but that Knowsley have no such relationship with UU and consequently do not assist with sewer baiting. My question is why, historically, Knowsley have gone it alone locally and passed up the chances that neighbouring authorities have taken, and instead chose not to sewer bait to control the rats. And does the Council agree that this has had a detrimental effect on pest numbers and increased the health risks in the borough as a consequence?
Thank you, Mr. Golding. Councillor Morgan, acknowledge the question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Could I ask Councillor Shelley Powell to respond to the question? Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Mr. Golding for the question. In 2011, the ownership of sewers and lateral drains transferred from local authorities to the utility companies, including responsibility for the maintenance and control of rat activity. Since 2011, this council has repeatedly lobbied United Utilities on this issue. We have always wanted them to introduce a sewer basin programme, and the decision not to sewer base in Knowsley was taken by United Utilities alone. United Utilities has responsibility for the maintenance and control of the sewer systems across the whole of the North West region. There are a number of local authority areas in the North West where there is no sewer basin programme, so this is not accurate to say that Knowsley has been the only area affected in that respect. United Utilities has used evidence provided by their own private pest control contractor to decide where to bait sewers. They say that their contractor has told them that there is not significant activity in the sewers, and that is why they decided that an annual programme was not required in Knowsley. Again, this is a position taken by United Utilities, and I'm just telling you what they have said. The Council has consistently challenged this position, but we have been unable to change their minds until very recently. I'm pleased to say tonight that our relentless efforts to push United Utilities to adopt a programme of sewer basin has now paid off, and they have finally agreed to conduct a targeted programme of sewer basin during 2020-21. I do also have to say that they will only agree to do so if the Council provides match funding of £15,000. I'm delighted to inform you that I've been able to identify that funding from my budget to make sure that this happens. This council takes the issue of pest management and any other associated public health risks very seriously. As well as looking to fund the sewer basin programme, our environmental health officers and our pest control technicians will continue to monitor the situation and carry out prevention and education work across the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Shelley Powell. We now have another question. Can I invite Mr. Heffy to ask his question, please?
Thank you. When the council sell land to developers, whether they're house builders, supermarkets or whatever, what assurances and commitments do you impose upon such land purchases to ensure that they register with schemes such as the Considerate Constructors?
Thank you for the question. Councillor Morgan, would you like to address the question, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. In the absence of Councillor Tony Brennan, I will respond to the question. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and also thank Mr. Heffy for your question. When the council sells land, we go through a competitive tender process. As part of the evaluation of the tenders, we consider the developer's track record in construction. Specifically, we ask bidders to provide 3 examples to demonstrate that they have been successfully delivered housing developments of a type and scale similar to what is being proposed for the land which the council is selling. All bidders must demonstrate that they have the necessary experience and expertise to be successful. Currently, the council has not made it mandatory for bidders to sign up to the Considerate Constructors scheme, but many of the sites across the borough are registered for the scheme anyway, such as the sites in Wiston Lane, Scotch Barn Lane, Rockford Road and Tower Hill. However, the question is timely, and we've recently incorporated membership for the scheme as a mandatory requirement as part of our next land sale, due to be completed at the end of the month, and a further one planned for the summer. I'm not sure if Mr. Heffy's inquiry relates to road site which near he lives, but just to note, that particular site was sold to a developer by Knowsley Community College, and the council had no role in that sale, but we are continuing to work with the local residents and Bellway Homes to do what we can help to resolve any issues associated with this development. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Item 5, Parliamentary election results. The report of the returning officer is attached in item 5 on the agenda for members' information. Do members agree to note this report? Thank you. Item 6, 2021 council tax base and forecast for 2019-20 collection fund balance. Councillor Ashton.
Can I move those recommendations contained in the report, Madam Mayor?
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I formally second those recommendations?
Thank you. Councillor Ashton, I believe you wish to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to draw a couple of issues to Council's attention contained in the report. I think one of the most impressive aspects of this report is contained at 1.2, which outlines the proposed council tax base for 2020-2021. The good news is that there's been an increase of 933 Band D properties, which equates to an increase of 2.6%. This will generate extra council tax receipts for just over 1.4 million per year, much needed funding that will help protect key services from government cuts to our funding. This is due to a couple of factors, namely the council's programme of encouraging new house building and a reduction in the take-up of council tax reduction scheme. Madam Mayor, you may recall this time last year we agreed to keep the council tax premium at 50%, on the proviso that we monitor the situation for a further 12 months. And as a result of that, we're now proposing that, subject to a short public consultation exercise, to increase the council tax premium to the maximum level from the 1st of April 2020. More details of that can be found on 4.5 of the report. However, Madam Mayor, I think it is important to point out that we would want to avoid penalising property owners who are actively trying to bring their property back into use, and would therefore introduce an appeals process to accompany the new charges. Finally, in section 5, the report explains that there will be a surplus on the council tax collection fund in the current year. Again, this is good news, and it arises from the increase in house building alongside with a drop in the council tax reduction scheme caseloads. The council's share of this will be £800,000, and it will be allocated as a one-off sum and be considered as part of the forthcoming 2020-2021 budget setting process. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ashton. Are those recommendations agreed, colleagues? Cashman?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a point. It's a little bit baffling because these are the exact same proposals that we put forward last year, and we were told that we were disgraceful for proposing this and that it was going to be detrimental to second property owners. So what's changed? The only thing I would say, Madam Mayor, is we will support this, but if the Labour Party put aside their pride and the inability to cooperate, then maybe we'd be a year ahead of the game rather than chasing a year later. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that, Carl Cashman. You wish to speak on that, lady?
Now, I remember very clearly, and I've already stated in my response the reason why we were taking 12 months to look at this. We didn't call that a disgrace. We called Councillor Cashman's excuse for empty properties a disgrace. If you go back into the minutes, you'll see that, and that was the reason we challenged that then. We never said that, we said we would look at this in 12 months' time, and I've actually quoted the very words that I used at last year's meeting at the same time in 2019. So it wasn't this that we were calling a disgrace, it was the comments that you made at the time a disgrace. Just for clarification, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Ashton. Okay, so I'm going to ask all those in favour, can we show our hands at the vote? All those against? Would anybody else like to speak or abstain? The motion is carried. Thank you. Item 7, Public Health and Annual Report. Councillor Sean Donnelly, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to move them recommendations.
Thank you. Councillor Jane Aston.
Happy to second the recommendations, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Donnelly, I believe you wish to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Director of Public Health is required to produce an independent annual report on the health and well-being of the population, highlighting the key issues for our partners to focus on. If members haven't already had a chance to see it, there is copies within your agenda packs and also in the members' room and online as well for residents. This year's report, Keeping Knowsley Active, is about physical activity, covers all ages, includes why keeping active is so important and what we as a council and our partners across Knowsley are doing to improve locally for our residents' physical activity levels. Being more active is not only has a positive impact on maintaining a healthy weight, but it also helps prevent and manage a number of long-term conditions. It helps improve our mental health and well-being. 31% of our Knowsley adults are inactive. The North West regional average is 25%. Inactive means being active for less than 30 minutes per week, much lower than the recommended activity levels for good health. This inactivity contributes to approximately 780 deaths a year in the borough. Inactivity costs the country and Knowsley. Nationally, the NHS alone spends around £1.2 billion a year on treatment for long-term conditions and the wider implications for social care arising from the loss of functional capability. There is also wider implications for the local economy due to a loss of productivity through increased number of days off sick and early death of employees. In Knowsley, there are a number of targeted programmes to support our residents to get more active in their local communities and workplaces. But it's not just about giving individuals being motivated to move more. The environment that we live to have to make our movement the easy option, the Council's ambitions, development agenda offers opportunities to promote and facilitate good health and physical activity. We also have our green gyms equipment installed in 15 sites across the borough, and not forgetting the play equipment in our fabulous parks for our children. Knowsley also has a well-established cycling and walking network which meets regularly. There are activities for children and their families offer at children's centres and our early years provisions. The 60,000 revenue from industrial granted sugar tax levy, known as the Healthy Pupils Capital Fund, was used to develop a package of activities across 20 community primary schools with the aim of encouraging health promotion, school environment to addressing the high obesity and low physical inactivity rates among our young children. Knowsley's Working Well programme, delivered by the Chamber of Commerce, encourages workplaces to achieve 8 workplace healthy standards to promote and encourage positive healthy well-being for the staff. One of these standards covers physical activity. Being more active doesn't need to cost time or money. It can be built into daily routines which the whole family can benefit from. Finally, I encourage you to all to have a look at the report, and also I'd like to thank the Director of Public Health for her excellent piece of work. Congratulations. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Ashton, do you wish to speak?
I've nothing further to add, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that. Are there any other members who wish to speak on this motion? No? Thank you for that. Councillor Sean Donnelly, would you like to add anything further? Thank you. All those in favour of the recommendations of the vote? Okay, thank you. All those against? Would anybody like to abstain from the vote? No. Thank you, the motion is carried. Item A8, Knowsley Strategy Youth Justice Plan 2019 to 20. Councillor Margie Harvey, please.
I'd like to move the recommendations, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Ashton.
I second those recommendations, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Margie Harvey, I understand you wish to speak a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Colleagues, since the Strategic Youth Justice Plan for 2019-2020 was devised, Knowsley's Youth Offending Service has focused on youth justice delivery for local children with special educational needs and disabilities, and has worked with partners to improve services and outcomes, particularly for those children placed in custody. In September 2019, the Association of Youth Offending Service Managers, in partnership with Achievement for All, met with the Knowsley partners to assess these improvements. I'm pleased to tell you that they concluded that the Knowsley partners were delivering consistent high levels of practice. In fact, they described them as leaders in the industry in this respect. And they awarded the Knowsley Local Area Partnership with the Youth Justice Send Quality Lead Award. This award recognises that Knowsley provides widespread, effective practice for the most vulnerable and disadvantaged children, thereby ensuring positive outcomes for children in the youth justice system with underlying special educational needs and disabilities. And it's for this reason that I want to take this opportunity to formally congratulate the Knowsley Youth Offending Service Partnership on their achievement. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Ashton, do you wish to speak on this?
Nothing further to add, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that. Do we accept the recommendations of the report, colleagues? Can we have the vote of all those in favour? Thank you. All those against? Would anybody like to abstain from this vote? No. Thank you, the motion is carried. Item 9, joint authorities. I'd like to invite Edna Finneran to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the Ladyside Fire and Rescue Authority representative provide us with an update of the outcome of the details inspection undertaken in 2019, please? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Can we ask Councillor Steph Keith, please, to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Finneran, for the question. Colleagues, Merseyside Fire and Rescue Service was the only fire and rescue service in England to receive 2 outstanding judgments. One in how we prevent fires and other risks, and the second in how we respond to national risk. In the first national inspection of all 45 English fire and rescue services, which took place in 2018-2019. This is a clear affirmation of our commitment to keeping the communities of Merseyside safer. Her Majesty's Inspectorate of Constabulary and Fire and Rescue Services are independent of government, and they have made it clear that they will pull no punches when delivering the result of the inspections. So to achieve such a glowing endorsement of our work is very pleasing indeed. The report assesses us as good across 3 inspection themes, which are how effective the fire and rescue service are in keeping people safe from fire and other risks, how efficient they are in keeping people safe from fire and other risks, and how well they look after their people. The inspectors were incredibly impressed by our prevention work, our understanding of risks, and our partnership work, including our close working relationships with local authorities. They saw clear evidence that we train and equip firefighters well and have maximised the time available to carry out prevention and protection activities, with the work undertaken to prevent fires resulting in the lowest number of fire deaths on record. They have commended our approach to staff well-being and the positive impact it has had on the whole workforce, and have made explicit reference to our national role and how we assist other services in times of real need. It is also really pleasing to see that the value we place on our support staff is acknowledged in the report. Like with any assessment, the inspectors did find some areas where they felt we could improve, and those areas are now part of our 2019-2020 service delivery plan, and we are pleased with the progress we are making. As you will know, the last few years haven't been without their challenges. Dealing with cuts and implementing change is difficult, and it can feel relentless at times. That said, we have worked hard to explain the decisions we have had to make to all of our stakeholders, and the Chief Fire Officer was pleased to publish a supplement to the authority's Integrated Risk Management Plan in July 2019 that puts resources back into the service for the first time in several years. This is something that no other fire and rescue service is doing currently. We are ambitious and optimistic for the future, and confident that our actions will further improve safety in Merseyside communities. Our firefighters and support staff have been pivotal in achieving such an excellent outcome, and we are very grateful to each and every one of them. The next inspection for MFRS will take place in July 2020. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Keith. Item 10, colleagues. Again, members' question time. We have a question from Councillor Ian Smith, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. How is the Council helping to alleviate the distressful issue of the leaseholder scandal and that of excessive year-on-year increased management estate charges applied to leaseholders and freeholders in Knowsley? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan.
once again, thank you, Madam Mayor, and once again, colleagues, I'll answer on behalf of Councillor Tony Bennett. Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Smith, for the opportunity to provide some reassurance on this issue. The Council has for a number of years taken steps to tackle unscrupulous practices taking place in residential leasehold market, both within Knowsley and nationally. At our Council meeting in March 2017, we agreed unanimously to call upon the Government to introduce a number of regulations. At that time, we noted that the ground leases have been a feature of the housing market, particularly in the North West England, for many years. When used responsibly, they are a sensible way of ensuring that housing developments are managed for the benefit of all the residents in the long term. However, the advent of so-called housing ground rent investment specialists marked a shift in the way the ground rents were perceived. Unfortunately, some of those investors saw the housing ground rent investment market as an opportunity to buy up existing ground rents and exploit their position to the detriment of the householders. The motion agreed called on the Government to introduce regulation to tackle the poor and unscrupulous practices being carried out by some private sector businesses. For 2 years now, the Council has had its own policy in place to help tackle this issue. Our policy is one that ensures that any new properties built on Council-owned land can only be sold on a freehold basis. In addition, any residents already owning a leasehold property are being given the opportunity to buy their freehold at a fair market value, and this affects around 160 homeowners in Knowsley. And it's also important to note that the existing ground rents in these cases are being set on a fair and transparent terms, and that the householders entered in these agreements freely. Again, through the real problems that lie with the other landowners and what we call the government, we've asked the government to intervene. Sadly, but not surprisingly, the government still hasn't taken any action to protect these people that have been affected. In view of the inaction of the government, George Howarth MP recently met with Esther McFay, the government's Minister for State for Housing, to request their intervention. Colleagues, we won't hold our breath, but we'll wait and see what happens. People living in this borough can be reassured that the Council has taken every proactive step possible to protect owners at a local level. We will continue to work closely with our local MPs and to lobby for the introduction of regulation, and I hope Councillor Smith and his party will support us on doing that so. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. We have another question, Councillor Joanne Berg, to ask a question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Further to the questions submitted at the previous meeting regarding a Green Party group leaflet and MIPIM, can the leader of the Green Group provide an update on his position in this respect?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you to Councillor Burke for the question. Many of you will be aware of the Green View leaflet which was circulated around the borough earlier this year, which alleged a council leader had misled the Chamber and the public in connection with the council's dealings with MIPIM in an exhibition, conference and networking event. MIPIM was held in London 2018 and in the south of France in 2019. I asked the question of Councillor Morgan about the cost of having Knowsley represented at an event in the south of France in 2019. He replied that one councillor and one officer had attended at a cost of less than £4,000, and that the council had not actually taken their own stall there, but had attended as part of a larger delegation from the Liverpool City Region Combined Authority. Around the same time, I was sent a photograph of a Knowsley stall at a MIPIM event, which I wrongly assumed was the event in the south of France in 2019. Following this, I made the false allegation that Councillor Morgan had misled the Chamber and the public. I now know and completely accept this photo was taken at the event in London 2018. I was therefore entirely wrong to accuse Councillor Morgan of misleading the Chamber or the public, and accept those replies to my questions were correct. I apologise to him unreservedly and given an undertaking to not repeat any such allegation in the future. Whilst I maintain the belief that it is inappropriate for councillors to be sent on these visits given our current financial situation, I'm always happy to be corrected when I've gotten details wrong, and I look forward to continuing to work constructively with Councillor Morgan on future aspects of council business. Thank you.
Thank you. Colleagues, in line with my approach at the previous meeting and in my capacity as the Mayor and the chairperson of the meeting, I will allow Councillor Graham Morgan to respond to Councillor Taylor, as just said it will his wishes. Councillor Morgan, do you wish to speak, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Taylor, thank you for your apology. Hopefully we'll all learn from this, and as I say, we've had some meetings this week. I've always said when I became the leader is that we might not agree with each other's views, but we respect them. So I accept your apology, and hopefully in future that you will check your facts. I give you 4 occasions to apologise, and I even emailed you back when you sent the photograph. But once again, thanks for your apology, and hopefully that's noted and we can now move on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Byron, in the view of Councillor Morgan's comments, do you wish to withdraw your question?
In the light of that apology, I do. I withdraw.
Thank you. Councillor John Donnelly to ask a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can the leader please update members as to the support provided by this council to our town centres in the run-up to Christmas, and what plans there are in place moving forward? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Morgan.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Can I thank Councillor John Donnelly for the question and ask Councillor Sean Donnelly to respond?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Leader. Thank you, Councillor John Donnelly, for the question. This council is determined to ensure that our town centres thrive despite the difficult trading conditions being experienced nationally. To date, we've committed over £90 million towards regeneration of our town centres, which is clear evidence of the extent of our commitment, and which has led to others now following. We've seen private investment come through, such as the confidence and trust with investors in our local businesses under this Labour Council. In Kirby, our investment has seen us acquire Kirby Town Centre, and then only a couple of weeks later, the commencement of the building work on the long-awaited retail development, something which the private sector has failed to deliver over the last 2 decades. In Prescott, work is underway with the development of the new Shakespeare North Playhouse and the upgrading of all public realm. In Huyton, we are now finalising the delivery plan, which will see new development brought forward. Turning to the specifics of Councillor John Donnelly's question, Christmas is obviously a key trading period of our town centre business. So the council worked with a range of partners to deliver a series of high-profile and well-supported events, bringing additional people to each area of the town centres. In Prescott, we organised a very successful Christmas light switch-on event and firework display. The event took place on Saturday the 16th of November, and there was over 11,000 people in Prescott Town Centre, an increase of 142% on a typical Saturday. Put simply, our event brought in an additional 6,500 people over the course of the day, when compared to the same event last year. That's a 5-fold increase. Local residents and shops stayed open to take advantage of the additional people in the town centre, and the feedback from the public has been excellent. In Huyton, the Christmas light switch on and Huyton Live event took place on Friday the 22nd of November. Almost 14,500 people attended, which is a 73% increase on a typical Friday, for an additional 6,100 people coming into Huyton Village. In Kirby, the Christmas light switch on event took place on Thursday the 21st of November and attracted an additional 7,523 visitors compared to the average Thursday. I would hope that every member here tonight would recognise that these are a remarkable set of figures and welcome boost to our town centres. Colleagues, when it comes to town centres, it's fair to say that our approach is the envy of many places across the country. I honestly can't see how anyone else could justifiably complain about this approach. Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Item 11, colleagues, notice of motion, declarations of climate change emergency. Councillor Shelley Powell, I believe you have a motion you wish to consider to the council to be considered.
Happy to move that motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that. Councillor Frank Walsh.
Happy to second the motion, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Shelley Powell, I understand that you wish to speak on the motion, but first there is a video clip that can be played.
There has to be something that someone can do. Like raise the awareness to those around you. That if we don't heed the problem at hand, it's your life that's at stake, the destruction of man.
Climate change is real. Us as a species have a huge role to play in it.
It's happening and it's happening fast.
We need to change, otherwise it's going to be irreversible.
But everyone as a whole needs to take their part.
But there's so much socially we can do, and I think it's something that's quite achievable.
We're recycling because it helps our planet.
They really want to feel like they're making a difference. I think they really want to feel like they're contributing to change.
We can do something now. We have the option to do something now. If we leave it too late, there'll be nothing we can do.
Just do small changes like turn the tap off when you're brushing your teeth or turn the lights off when you leave the room.
And we made posters to put by all the light switches in the school to say, remember to turn off the lights when you're finished with them. Start using your electricity more carefully.
Locally, I'd like to see green spaces being prioritised, looking for better transport, more eco-friendly transport. It's a lot of little things that will build up.
Little things that everybody does will really accumulate to a big change.
The fact that people are already starting to get involved, it shows that people don't believe we're too late.
There's lots of bad things, but there's lots of positive things now, because all the young people, like our generation, we care about it a lot.
We should be able to live in a world where we have clean air, we have parks, we have spaces to go.
A better future for the next generation. Maybe people will start realising if we don't act now, it will be too late.
And it is an emergency that we need to do something about everywhere.
Thank you for the video. Councillor Shelley, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Colleagues, I'm sure that you will agree that our children did a fantastic job there with the video, as good as Greta Thunberg. It's clear that the future of our borough and the future of our planet belongs to them. Climate change must be a huge priority for all, for young people across the globe and indeed for us locally as decision makers within our own communities. It's clear that we need to act now, just as we would in any other emergency. However, we need to be smart when we declare our emergency. We need to be specific in what we are actually going to do. Our actions need to be measurable so we know that they have made a difference. Those actions need to be agreed, which we will aim to do during this calendar year. They need to be realistic in what is possible by 2040, and we need them to be time-based so we are clear when they will begin and end. We need to develop an action plan which is informed by the recommendations arising from recent reports by organisations including the Carbon Trust, the Association of Public Service Excellence and the Friends of the Earth. We should also consider other recommendations from the Liverpool City Region Combined Authority, our local community and elected members. Setting our target for 2040 is realistic. It is 10 years sooner than the government target, but aligned with the city region target. But it's not cast in stone, and we should keep it under review as our action plan progresses. We should be prepared to adjust the timescales and aim to achieve our objectives as soon as we can. just like any other type of emergency. We are prioritising our impact by acting locally. We need to get our house in order and then work with partners to maximise our potential to reach zero carbon. We want to actually do what is right for Knowsley, our residents and partners. We are not just setting a random, unachievable target to grab media attention. We will do this properly and make it happen as soon as we possibly can. I heard a quote recently that states, "We can go faster alone, but much further if we go together." Well, colleagues in the Chamber, let's do just that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Howard. Councillor Frank Walsh, do you wish to speak on the motion?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Colleagues, ensuring that everyone can breathe clean air is one of the most fundamental issues that is facing us today. An issue that we must all address together. Earlier this year, the Liverpool City Region Combined Authority declared a climate emergency, and addressing poor air quality is at the heart of responding to it. As is often the case, it is our most deprived communities who already have to cope with multiple health problems, who suffer the most from the effects of polluted air. I am delighted we are working with the Liverpool City Region to become carbon neutral by 2040, if not sooner. My work in the City Region on the Air Quality Task Force means we are able to vastly contribute to the ongoing work already being done by other authorities to address this global concern. But no one organisation or individual can address poor air quality alone. We all need to change the way we live, work and do business if we are to improve our air quality for ourselves and for future generations. We must act now, and we must act locally. Now is the time for action, and on that basis I am delighted to second this motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. Councillor Taylor has indicated that he wishes to table an amendment to this motion. Yes?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Just a minute, yeah. Just got a second. I'm sorry about that, my fault, yeah.
Have to move that amendment, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Bailey.
Can I second the amendment to that motion, please?
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to extend my thanks to Councillors Powell and Walsh for bringing this important topic back to full council for another debate. As members will recall, Councillor Ian Smith and I proposed a similar motion last year, that was unfortunately amended by the council beyond recognition. The climate crisis is not only a subject that's closest to my heart, but it's also incredibly important to residents right across the borough, and I sincerely hope that this motion, in whatever format, is successful today. I must admit I was pleasantly surprised by the depth and the level of commitment contained in this motion. We are seeing up and down the country climate crisis being declared by councils of all colours, patting themselves on the back and then continuing with business as usual. No plans, no targets and no goals. So I'm pleased to see that this motion goes further than this. Following the meeting held between myself, Councillor Bear and Councillors Morgan, Aston and Donnelly, I do feel that there is genuine commitment between all parties in this council to tackle climate change. Because we know the effects of climate change will impact our communities like ours here in Knowsley far more than other areas. We know people who are socially, economically, culturally, politically, institutionally or otherwise marginalised are especially vulnerable to climate change. One noticeable impact is through the reduction in crop yields, which will lead to higher prices in food on our weekly shop. Madam Mayor, members in this chamber are all too aware that many of our residents are struggling to put food on the table. We are all too aware that many of our residents already struggle to provide for their families, being forced to make the horrible choice between heating their homes and feeding their children. Members in this chamber will also be aware that when the challenges increase and the budgets shrink, we will not be able to count on the Tory government for an ounce of support. So whilst I support this motion, its intentions are the same, I do propose that we make some minor amendments, not in criticism of the document, but indeed to strengthen and ensure that it's a call for radical action to address a problem of an apocalyptic impact. My amendment seeks to address the year at which the Council feels it should aim for a net zero carbon emission by, and it also aims to provide the Council with a set of realistic goals to work towards. This, in effect, provides elected members with an opportunity to scrutinise the progress of the Council in years to come. The original motion sets a target date of 2040. Colleagues, I feel like this can't be up for debate. We have to side with the scientists on this issue. The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, the IPCC, reported in October 2018 that the world has until 2030 to avoid an increase in global temperatures above 1.5 degrees Celsius, which will have a devastating impact on the planet and people's lives. This target date is agreed by multiple scientists and climate change activists across the world. It's not a random target. Climate change is already affecting the entire world, with extreme weather conditions such as drought, heat waves, heavy rain, floods and landslides become more frequent, especially in Europe. Other consequences of the rapidly changing climate include rising sea levels, ocean acidification and loss of biodiversity. Now I understand some members may be sceptical. Can we really achieve net zero carbon emissions from council estates and services by 2030? Unfortunately, colleagues, we don't really have a choice. It really is do or die at this point. We are either radical in our resistance to the climate crisis, or we face the consequences. In a climate emergency, courage is not just a choice, it's strategic, it's a survival strategy. So colleagues, in conclusion, I ask you to join authorities like Islington, Hillington, Fareham and Chorley in setting our target date as 2030. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr Taylor. We now have Councillor Joanne Baird. You may speak on this point or reserve. You don't wish to speak on this now. Okay. Other members may wish to speak on the amendment. Councillor Jane Ashton, I believe you wish to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I welcome Councillor Taylor's positive comments regarding our notice of motion tonight. But speaking on behalf of my Labour Group colleagues, we believe the amendment is unnecessary. The motion in its current form is achievable. Surely, Madam Mayor, the important thing here is to do the right thing. If national government, with all the resources available to them, are unable to commit to a target of 2030, how can Knowsley, with its ever-diminishing resources inflicted by national government, by the way, commit to such a target? Committing to an unrealistic target would leave us open to criticism. Residents would rightly accuse us of agreeing to such a target just to grab a headline, and that is not what this is about. This is a genuine attempt to do our bit, to take our responsibilities seriously. I have no doubt that we'll take into consideration all the expert advice as Councillor Powell has advised, and where possible, incorporate them into our plan. But we will do that where we know that we can make a difference. We don't need to commit to one particular group of recommendations above any other at this point. As the years go by and the situation changes, we will need to flex and adapt our plans to meet the emerging situation. Our target is achievable, and it's based on the analysis that we've undertaken, which we committed to do early in 2019. And where the evidence and our actions allow, we will review our 2040 target accordingly. On that basis, colleagues, I'd urge you to vote against the amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. Any other members who hasn't already spoke and may wish to speak on the amendment? Yes, Carl.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I completely support the notice of motion in both of its forms, actually, Madam Mayor. It's no doubt that we need to take responsibility for the climate crisis now, ensure that our actions help the future generations, and simply don't leave them with the burden of climate change in years to come. It's for that reason, Madam Mayor, that I'm happy to support the motion in both of its forms, so the original form and with the amendments. The original motion puts us on the path to begin the work necessary to combat climate change locally, and the amendment is simply more ambitious. And it's my belief that with issues such as this, the more ambitious we are, the better. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that. Does anybody, other members, wish to speak on this? Yeah, Councillor Mooney.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. Yeah, I agree with both of you. I say it is important to be ambitious, but we do have to be realistic as well. I mean, we're a deprived area, we can't go to, you know, all our residents tomorrow and say, well, you've all got to have an electric car, you know, in 10 years' time. We can't do that, so we do have to be realistic, and I'm pleased that we all are working together, because we do work better together, and this is an important issue where we have to, and we all agree, in this room, we all want the same thing. So, you know, whether it's 230, 240, 250, that's just a number, isn't it? The most important thing is that we start, we've got a plan, and let's go forward with it together. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Mooney. Anybody else wish to speak? No? Okay, thank you. Councillor Shelley Powell, if you wish to speak for the vote.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think our young people have set the scene really well for this notice of motion, as has Councillors Walsh and Aston, and therefore I've nothing further to add other than I would expect every single elected member in this chamber to vote in favour of the notice of motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shelley. I will now put the amendment as proposed by Councillor Taylor to the vote. All those in favour? Sorry?
It was just a question, Madam Mayor.
I did ask Councillor Smith before.
I just wanted to ask if there were questions on the main motion from members.
When we come back to the main motion, yeah, okay, yes?
Can I respond to the comment on the amendment?
No. In a minute, when we do the proposed vote.
We're not going to go to the vote now.
No. Do what? Well, you don't get a right to reply, okay? That's in the rules, okay? So we're going to go forward now. All those in favour of the amendment, the vote to be taken on the amendment. Can we have a show of hands, please? Thank you. All those against the amendment, vote please. Thank you. Would anybody like to abstain? Nobody, okay. The motion has been lost. I will now return to the original motion as proposed by Councillor Shelley Powell. Are there any further comments or questions from members after Councillor Shelley Powell? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I indicated before, I'm still happy with the original motion. A few things to point out is obviously we've referenced Greta Thunberg a lot today, but to then completely go against what the whole climate change campaign that she's leading, we've kind of put her on a pedestal, and then we've laughed in her face as we've brought her down by sticking with the 2040. I'd like to thank Councillor Mooney for her constructive comments, but I do have to disagree that it's not just the number 2030, 2040. There is a massive difference. The difference is the IPCC have stated that if it goes past 2030, if we don't keep below that 1.5 degrees Celsius, we will irreversible
Point
damage.
of order, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Councillor Mooney was, in her comments, speaking to the amendment, not to the original motion. I believe that Councillor Taylor is now speaking to the original motion, not the amendment.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm speaking it's a holistic speech.
Thank you.
So, moving on, in terms of... Sorry, I've lost my track now. But as I mentioned before, I do remain genuinely optimistic about the future possibilities of this council to work together to tackle the climate emergency. The motion as it stands still remains a viable and somewhat useful document and goes some way to setting out how the county can continue to make changes to reduce its carbon emissions. I'm particularly interested to see how the Climate Emergency Scrutiny Committee will play its roles in ensuring that the council's commitment to climate change goes so much further than the passing of this motion tonight. From the Arctic to the Amazon, the world's on fire. We must do all that we can as councillors, activists and stakeholders within our parties to shape the priorities over the next decade to make a real commitment towards tackling climate change. We need to exert every drop of influence that we can through our MPs, through our connections to government, to ensure that they give the crisis the attention it deserves. And we also desperately need national legislation and huge investment of serious funding to ensure that we give future generations the same chances we've been had in life. On a final note, one thing that I will say is Councillor Aston has just mentioned before that we will continue to take the advice of the experts. If the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change are not the experts, then I don't know who is. But I look forward to finding that out as the action plan comes back to Council.
Thank you for that, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, within Knowsley, I mean, obviously I'm for the motion and I was for the amendment, but just two pieces of advice in a way. First piece of advice to Knowsley Council is to stop building on our green spaces, floodplains and also Grade 1 agricultural land. I don't think the public appreciate that, and that certainly would help with climate change. And the other one is, going back a while, we had a brilliant recycling scheme when it was introduced, and as it developed, it included the recycling of food waste. Unfortunately, this was not rolled out across the borough for various reasons, and I think it's about time that this was taken seriously and put into, you know, the programme for the future. Certainly in a bin, the heaviest item is usually the food waste, and surely to goodness now is the time to start saving money and recycling food waste. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Graham, want to speak?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Points of correction for Councillor Smith. It was rolled out all over the borough, the food waste. Unfortunately, because of the funding cuts under your government with the Conservatives, we lost a lot of funding, and that was one of the things that we had to lose, sadly. So you need let's not have selective amnesia here. It was your government that stopped our funding to carry that on. It did go out through the...
Excuse me, can we have one meeting and let the leader respond?
Madam Mayor, we have been very quiet and respectful here, but as soon as Councillor Smith gets challenged, he wants to heckle all the time. Please give me the time to respond. But also, if we want to go back in time, and we're talking about climate change, do you remember, colleagues, we had a plan, and it was called the tram. And Councillor Smith was at the forefront to stop the tram coming into Prescott. He led the campaign for a clean, green transport. So let's get the facts right here.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Ashton, sorry, Councillor Smith, you've spoken, let other people speak. Councillor Ashton, you wish to speak?
The point's been made, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Who wishes to speak? Oh, Councillor O'Keefe, second O'Keefe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Smith, I would love to take your simplistic view at life, but unfortunately we do also have residents to house whilst other issues are happening. So it's very simplistic to simply say we should just stop building houses. We do what we can to provide for our residents in multiple ways. We don't only deal with one issue in this council. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that, Councillor Stepke. Okay, following this, if there are no further comments to the amendment, can I ask Councillor Shelley Powell, please, to speak? To move the original motion.
Happy to move the original motion. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that. Okay, we've gone to the stage of it all now, and I think we've done the vote on the amendment check. I'll now put the original motion to the vote proposed by Councillor Shelley Powell, please. All those in favour of the original motion, please. Thank you. All those against the original motion, please. Okay, thank you for that. Would anybody like to abstain? No. The original motion is carried. Thank you. The next item, Councillor Joan Baker, I believe you would like to speak on the next consideration of fireworks.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move the motion as set out in the order paper.
Thank you for that. Councillor Kite-Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to second that motion.
Thank you for that. Councillor John Baker, do you wish to speak on the motion? Thank you.
I'm sure each of the councillors here have been contacted by residents regarding this motion from the RSPCA. We've all seen the really sad stories of animals that have needlessly lost their lives due to the distress of fireworks. For most of us, our pet is a member of our family, and to witness their distress is unbearable. For many people, fireworks are awesome, they're fun and they're exciting, but for some people, these lights in the sky are overwhelming. They echo far longer than they should and cause distress, in particular for people with sensory challenges who can experience the noise and lights that fireworks emit as incredibly overwhelming and in some instances actually physically painful. Even though the sound is far away in the dark sky, some children with sensory challenges may hear it as if the fireworks are actually exploding in their ears. I witnessed this myself at a recent Christmas event. The fireworks were delayed for some reason, and if an announcement was made to preempt them, it wasn't heard in the area that we were standing. Fireworks appeared in the sky from nowhere, and it made me jump, but I witnessed children screaming and crying because they clearly didn't expect it. Aversive stimuli, such as loud noises that are unpredictable and out of an animal's control, as is the case with fireworks, are also particularly stressful for them. Being unpredictable, as well as intermittent and relatively infrequent, also makes it unlikely that animals will acclimatise to fireworks noise. I'm asking colleagues to support this motion tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bain. We've got Councillor Kite-Taylor wishes to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Nothing further to add to that.
Thank you for that. Are there any other members that wish to speak on this motion? I know Councillor Sherry Powell would like to.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This council is fully aware of the impacts which fireworks can have on some people and animals. We're also familiar with the RSPCA's proposed notice of motion seeking council adoption of a particular approach. In fact, the notice of motion before us tonight from Councillor Bay is almost a direct copy of the RSPCA's version. Many of us enjoy fireworks, and their sensible use is a well-established tradition across the country and indeed across the world. However, we all know that their inappropriate use can lead to injury or antisocial behaviour and can instill fear in people and animals. It's important that society behaves sensibly towards such matters, and this council is already working to support a realistic approach in Knowsley. In fact, we receive a minimal number of complaints in respect of firework noise causing distress, and I think that shows that people in our borough, supported by the council, can generally be trusted to behave sensibly. We take a number of key actions alongside our police and fire service partners as a matter of routine to make sure that we deal with the minority of people who might misbehave. This includes regulating the sale and use of the most powerful fireworks, encouraging organised community firework displays to discourage the prolonged and unexpected use of fireworks by individuals, providing support to such community events through the Knowsley Safety Advisory Group of council, police and fire service officials, and providing clear guidance to promote responsible firework use and to support the protection of people and animals likely to be negatively impacted by fireworks. So we already take positive action, and this council has already recognised the importance of responsible firework use and taken the very reasonable steps to address the concerns raised by Councillor Baird. In my view, colleagues, the proposed notice of motion does not add any new value and there is no need to adopt it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shipp-Howell. Are there any other members who wish to speak on the motion? Okay, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thanks to Councillor Powell for her comments. I'm sorry, I genuinely do not buy that we don't have firework issues in this borough. As an elected member who's done 2 bonfire nights, it really does not wash with me because my phone does not stop for the week leading before up until that day. In fact, 2018, shortly after in my first year of being a councillor, a 3-year-old girl had a firework rocket shot at her in my ward on Burt Street. So I do genuinely, I don't take that seriously. I don't take that the borough is fine in that respect. I really don't. In terms of you saying the motion adds nothing, does it change anything? I don't see why the Labour group are always so resistant to opposition motions. I firmly believe that there isn't a monopoly on wisdom, and if I see a good idea and it comes from any political party, I'm going to support it and back it 100% of the way. I don't see why what we see is ideas get raised like a climate emergency motion, like what we were talking about Councillor Cashman with the council tax rates, and the idea is lambasted and it's attacked, and then a year later it comes back as a Labour Party motion. Why don't we just kind of work to get why don't we just work to get motions as they come through, treat them as they are, treat them for what they're worth, and vote on them with a clear conscience on that, not along party lines or on whether you don't want one party to be able to take credit for something, but on whether it's actually of genuine benefit and impact to the community. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that. Are there other members who wish to speak? Councillor Steph O'Keefe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Interesting comments, Councillor Taylor, given that just today the majority group and the opposition group agreed to work on a motion together to come to a future council meeting. So I think your comments aren't accurate at all, given that we didn't work together. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Dolney.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think Councillor Powell explained fully why we can't support this. I believe what Councillor Powell said. If no residents can contact the council, we can't understand the problem. You may have had people contacting you, but unless it's reported to our community safety team and our community, I gave you the respect, Councillor Taylor. Can you give me the respect, please? Thank you. Also, just to be very clear, you brought up the motion of the climate emergency. This council already had a motion and an action plan on climate a long time ago. So it wasn't just because you brought it in last time. We amended it to make sure it was fit for purpose, and that's why we've done it. We all believe that fireworks for the 2 years. I love this. I firmly believe fireworks are a problem, and that's why us as a council encourage as many residents to go to public displays where it's safe for everyone, and also we can manage the situation. Unfortunately, we have a small majority of people in this community who throw fireworks, who set fireworks off at different times of the year and cause us great distress. Unfortunately, we can't regulate that on our own. We need all our partners to support us in the licensing and enforcement of fireworks. Thank you.
Councillor Dolney. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Last bonfire night, or bonfire weekend, or bonfire week, was the first one that I hadn't worked for 15 years as part of the fire and rescue service and as one of the arson officers in the service because of the position I'm in now. Knowsley had a record low incidence over the bonfire period last year, and the support that Del and Steph put in for Knowsley, because we have an arson officer and they work with the police, we were at a record low incidence. One's too many, and we acknowledge that, and I think that's been acknowledged in the resolution, in the notice of motion. But as Councillor Donnelly said, it's very, very difficult to regulate because there is establishments and ones in Prescott where they can sell fireworks throughout the year, not just over the period, the bonfire period. They have a licence until we change the government's attitude on it and ban them completely. That will never win. So this notice of motion that you presented really doesn't have much value, but we do realise there is a problem, and we will still be working with all our partners to keep it record levels, record low levels, like we achieved last year in Knowsley. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Anybody else, members, wish to speak on it? No? Okay. Councillor John Baker, would you like to speak before we put it to the vote? No? Right, all those in favour, can we take the vote to be taken? All those in favour of the motion? Thank you. All those against the motion? Would anybody like to abstain? Did I say anyone with an abstention? Yeah, abstain. Thank you. So the motion is lost. Thank you. Councillor Bain Morgan, I believe you have a motion you wish the council to consider of our cost Memorial Day.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And I just meant, can we have someone to move the Holocaust Memorial Day?
Can I move that notice of motion, Madam Mayor?
Thank you. Can someone second that? Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Morgan. Sorry about that.
Okay, no problem, Madam Mayor. Thank you. Colleagues, you will be aware that for the last few years we've remembered the victims of the Holocaust and other genocides that have shown our respect by observing a minute's silence at each January full council meeting. In January 2018, we agreed a motion adopting the definition of anti-Semitism as set out by the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and we also pledged to combat racism. This year, the theme of the Holocaust Memorial Day is Stand Together. It's especially significant as it marks the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz-Birkenau and the 25th anniversary of the Bosnian genocide in Srebrenica. It is therefore timely for us to take further action to remember these atrocities. What happened all those years ago is truly heartbreaking, and so it is important that we make time to learn about what happened to prevent history from repeating itself. Last Monday marked the date of the Holocaust Memorial Day 2020, and Knowsley joined people up and down the country in a mark of respect by raising the Union flag. We also had a minute's silence prior to the start of this meeting. Colleagues, this motion speaks for itself. It shows our commitment to combat all forms of racism and discrimination, and it makes a statement about our democracy, reminding us that what can happen when hatred is left unchecked. It also requires in future years to continue showing our commitment to Holocaust Memorial Day by raising the Union flag every 27th of January and by continuing to hold a minute's silence at the January full council meeting. A colleague recently suggested having a permanent feature in the borough to commemorate Holocaust Memorial Day, and I think this is an excellent idea and something the council should consider, and can I thank Councillor Joan Lilly for that suggestion. I encourage you also to support this motion to show that we each condemn the evils of prejudice, discrimination and racism, and that we value a free, respectful and democratic society. Colleagues, I hope you can support the notice of motion.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Councillor Shelley Powell, do you wish to speak on the motion?
Nothing further to add, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Are there any other members who wish to speak on this motion? No. Okay. Councillor Bain Morgan, would you like to respond to any information?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that. Okay. All those in favour, can we show our hands, please? Thank you. All those against? Would anybody like to abstain? No. The motion is carried. Thank you. Colleagues, this motion has been withdrawn on the next item, the live rain days at events organised by Knowsley. This will be discussed between the Green Party group and the Labour group. So this is withdrawn from the agenda. Thank you. Councillor Kai-Taylor, I believe you have a motion you wish to remove. Oh, to move, sorry. I'm getting tired now.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to move that motion.
Thank you for that. Councillor Joanne Baird, I believe you wish to second this motion.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'd like to second that motion, please.
Okay. Councillor Kai-Taylor, do you wish to speak on this motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Since becoming an elected member, it's always struck me just how inefficient and archaic some of the council's systems and practices can be. I've always thought it was odd that the people of Knowsley elect 45 councillors from different areas and different political parties, only for decision-making power to be delegated to a small group of cabinet members. We were all elected to influence policy and make decisions on behalf of our residents. So how can it be right that huge decisions such as the purchasing of Kirby Town Centre or the awarding of a contract for the Shakespeare North Playhouse be taken by a small group of members? Colleagues, I believe those decisions should be made in full council, giving every member a say and allowing for greater scrutiny in the council's actions. If these huge decisions have negative repercussions, how will members in this chamber feel when residents question them on the important issues, only to have to shrug our shoulders and say that the decision wasn't anything to do with them? In my opinion, the leader and cabinet model is an ideal for promoting the best interests for the community. Now, I understand there are advantages. I'm sure the simplicity of the model allows strategic decisions to be made in a swifter and more coordinated way. But we also must note the very significant disadvantages. The political balance and scrutiny committees often favours the majority party, and whilst this may not seem like a huge issue for the members of the majority party now, I'd remind you all that the place's majority group is not guaranteed in perpetuity. I'm also aware Labour councillors who are not in the cabinet often feel disengaged too, like decisions are made without their input, leaving communities without a voice at the table. This model also places a great deal of responsibility in the hands of a few members. It's also important to note that Prescott, Whiston and Cronton currently have no representation within the Cabinet. Now, the Council's governance arrangements have to comply with legislation in the Localism Act of 2011. This allows local authority to either maintain the current executive model of governance, to opt to change to a committee system, or to move to a mayoral cabinet model, or to adopt an alternative arrangement pending its agreement by the government. This motion does not seek to change the governance model in this instance. Instead, this motion aims to explore the alternative models of government and allow proper informed debate to take place in the future to determine the most effective form of governance for this council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor John Baird, do you wish to speak? Thank you. Any other members who wish to speak on this motion? Councillor Orban.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Colleagues, isn't it a disgrace that a giant crane arrived only the other day to start building the Shakespeare in the North, and Councillor Taylor tries to slag it off? What an achievement we've made. Councillor Taylor wasn't on the council when we made that decision. Some of the opposition councillors were, and they laughed in our faces, but look at it now, it's coming out the ground. And to use Shakespeare North as an example of wrongdoing within a Labour-controlled council, my God. But colleagues, I was surprised and disappointed to read the contents of this no-serious motion. I cannot speak for the other parties, but I can confirm that every Labour group member is fully engaged in the council's decision-making process via committees such as scrutiny, planning and licensing. So the Greens Party statement that under our current mode of governance, power lies with the leader and a small number of cabinet members, they are mistaken, and that is yet another misleading statement. The Greens suggest that the alternative modes of governance are preferable, even though they acknowledge that they don't acknowledge what one they want. The committee-based system is protracted and results in decisions being delayed. Having served on this council under both systems, I can confidently state that the current mode of government means that we are able to make decisions faster. It is inclusive, with our scrutiny members carrying out our valuable pieces of work on policy development and review. It is transparent, as we publish all our decisions, and it ensures that we are able to progress and deliver against the commitments we have given, as well as ensuring that the decisions are not being made in committee silos. Every area of our borough has benefits from the ability to be able to progress our decision making faster, and we are seeing some fantastic outcomes for our residents because of it. Shakespeare North, one of them. Colleagues, over the last decade, this Labour Council experienced some of the most significant final cuts of any local authority nationally. Through our governance model, we have worked hard not only to respond to this, but also to the challenges that this council to become better. I cannot support any proposal that would stifle this growth and hamper our ability to continue. For these reasons, this motion must be rejected.
Thank you, Councillor Morgan. Are there any other members who wish to speak on this motion? Councillor Smith?
Just a comment really. I think I just about remember the old system, having been first elected in 1999. There was a wide consultation with the public at the time about the different systems, and the results were very interesting. I would advise Councillor Taylor to have a look at the results, because I don't think that the public were particularly in favour of the system we've got now. But because you know who runs the council, they basically can do what they want. The system kind of reflects the Westminster model. I personally, as a member of the opposition, have not found it rewarding in the sense of being inclusive. It's more or less on a need-to-know basis, and that's not very often in many respects. I don't know what Councillor Morgan is going on about the crane in Prescott, but I think it's absolutely lovely, and I can't wait to see the Shakespeare Theatre rise from the ground. I'm sure it'll be fantastic. Much more fantastic than the system of governance that we have here.
Thank you, Councillor Smith. Councillor Aston.
Just very briefly, Madam Mayor, Councillor Smith says you know who is in control of the council. I guess he means the Labour Party's in control of the council. The Labour Party's in control of the council because the people of Knowsley voted the Labour Party into the council. Small percentage. Right, okay. Democracy is democracy, Madam Mayor. People cast their vote each May, almost. We have a bye next year, but this year we have elections. People vote, they cast their vote in a democratic way, and we respect that democratic vote. And that's why there are so many Labour Party members on these benches. So it's sad, Madam Mayor, that he disrespects the democratic process.
Councillor Ashton, can I just stop you there, please? Can we have one meeting? If you wish to speak after Councillor Ashton, then by all means put your hand up. But please, while one person speaks, can we please allow that in this chamber? Thank you. Councillor Ashton, you wish to continue? No? Thank you for that. Councillor Mooney, you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I don't know the system before I came. I came into the system where it was scrutiny committees, and I think in the scrutiny committees is where you have your power and where you have your say. And if you came to them, I'm not going to mention anybody's names, but people don't come to them, and that's where we challenge. We challenge the office. We challenge the officers. Joanne, you will know this. We bring, because you've just done the latest task and finish. Yeah. So we do. We bring everybody. We bring all the people aware. We bring the stakeholders. We bring the parents and everything in, and that's where we challenge it. And then we send the recommendations through to the cabinet. And it's hard work, and I'm not the ones who go to work hard. Joanne, you were there, you know. So if you want to make a difference, I think that's where it starts at your scrutiny committees, where you call your officers in and you challenge them and you hold them to account, and you find out from the public, from the parents, or from whatever committee you're on, to see whether the information that you're getting coincides with what your findings are. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor. Councillor Finneran, I believe you wish to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to agree with what Lynn said, we're on the combined authority, we've got outside bodies, you go to these meetings, and I'm proud to say I've been to all of them, and I think we've all got to sit here and say, it's important to go to these meetings. We're representing the people. If you go to the combined authority, again, not naming names, they don't turn up. How can we make decisions when people are not turning up and meetings have to be cancelled because we're not quorate? So if you're really into saying it, you have to turn up and make your voice heard if you're that passionate about it. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Finneran. Is there any other members that wish to speak? I'll bring you in at the end. No, can't bring you've spoken. Any other members wish to speak before Kai comes back in? No? Okay, Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think some of the responses are maybe a bit irrationally defensive. This isn't a vote on scrap the leader and cabinet system. This is a vote to say that as any reasonable corporate body, every now and again we should review our governance structures which we have in place. I've not been on the council long enough to know when the original change was made over to a leader and cabinet system, but I imagine it was before 2011 when we had this opportunity to not just change different systems but also present our own system. In response to Councillor Mooney's, I absolutely agree that scrutiny committees do have a valuable role. In this instance, if we did switch to the committee system, that would not be weakening the committee structure, that would be strengthening. I think a lot of councillors agree that sometimes full council becomes a bit like a pantomime, but the real work and the real kind of collaboration and the cross-party working goes on in committees. And I think committees have done some good work, and particularly the Sustainable Resources Committee in 2017 did some fantastic work on pulling in the party plan, which delayed it. So I'm not criticising the scrutiny committees, and as well, it's not a personal attack on the current cabinet or the current leader. It's an attack on the system. I do believe we should have a cabinet of 10 people. We've now shortened that to 5, and a lot of it just feels like this motion isn't saying we're definitely going to change to this system, or this system. This motion is asking the Assistant Executive Director for Governance and Monitoring to produce a report outlining the strengths and weaknesses of each of the systems, allowing us to have an informed debate and come back and make a decision in the future. It's not, we're receiving a lot of politically aimed criticisms of the Green Party want this, the Green Party want that. The Labour Party and Wirral have just agreed to change their system of governance. It's not an uncommon thing. It's not a thing that should be met with scepticism and should be kind of scrutinised. It's something that to review one's governance system, in my opinion, it's a form of good governance that we're constantly reviewing that and looking for ways to improve it. So, like I said, the motion is there, and obviously everyone gets to put their name to whichever way they want to vote on it. We said our piece, and I'm happy to go forward with the vote. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you for that. Recorded vote, okay. All those in favour, please. Can we have our hands show? Okay. All those against? Would anybody like to abstain? Okay. The motion is lost. Councillor Kai Taylor, I believe you have a motion you wish to be considered by the council.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Happy to move that motion.
Thank you for that. Councillor Baird.
Can I second that motion, Madam Mayor, please?
Thank you. Councillor Kai Taylor, do you wish to speak on the motion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do apologise. I realise some of you may be getting bored of hearing from me by now. I had intended to put these on the December meeting, but that was moved back with the general election. This motion is to look into introducing DBS checks for elected members. Prior to 2012, local authorities routinely carried out criminal record bureau checks on elected members. However, the Protection of Freedoms Act of 2012 created the Disclosure and Barring Service and a new system of checks. This included a more restrictive set of criteria to determine when checks could be carried out and on whom. Since 2012, the issues of DBS checking for councillors has become a policy matter for individual councils. National abuse inquiries, including those in Rochdale, Rotherham and Oxfordshire, have raised fresh concerns about how local authorities can ensure that they are protecting vulnerable people, especially children, from sexual exploitation and other forms of abuse. In some cases, public officials have ignored or been implicated in such abuse. As councillors, we have a large amount of trust and confidence placed in us by our residents. We are routinely invited into people's homes, confided in, and people make us aware of their personal circumstances. When I first became a councillor in 2018, I was amazed at the lack of background checks. In fact, there were no checks at all. I remember thinking that this was unacceptable, as working as a councillor, you come into contact with members of the public and vulnerable people. I feel that as a borough knows the council can lead the way locally in demonstrating our commitment and dedication to the safeguarding of residents. Councillors can act as a vital support line for the most vulnerable in our community. We are often the last resort that residents try when they simply don't know who else to turn to. Although members who serve in roles such as that of a school governor will be subject to a DBS check, there is no mechanism in place that requires councillors to do so. Colleagues, public trust in politicians and politics in general is at an all-time low. It's been eroded away by scandal after scandal after scandal. Is it not time that Nosey does our bit in leading the way and calling on this to be accepted as a standard practice of all councils up and down the country? Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor John Baker, do you wish to speak on the motion? Thank you for that. Are there any other members who wish to speak on this motion? I've been indicated of one, Councillor Jane Ashton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Council takes its safeguarding duties seriously and works to ensure that every individual discharging functions on its behalf is appropriately vetted. As the Green Party have alluded to, organisations such as the Council who administer DBS checks are required to adhere to the DBS Code of Practice and satisfy obligations imposed on them by statute, which means that they can only apply for DBS checks for individuals whose roles satisfy the prescribed framework. I'm pleased to be able to say that in 2019, the Disclosure Barring Service concluded that Knowsley exceeded the national average of compliance in its applications. What this means is the Council already ensures that those discharging functions on our behalf receive appropriate DBS checks. Any and all councillors who carry out education and or social service functions relating to children, as well as those who are school governors, are already DBS checked. The Green Party appear to be suggesting that the Council is not discharging its duty to our residents to ensure the councillors are appropriately checked, but this is not true. If the Green Party have concerns about their own membership and their engagement with members of the public outside of when they are discharging functions on behalf of the Council, then I would encourage them to review their own internal party processes for vetting their candidates. Madam Mayor, this notice is no more than a token gesture. Checks are already undertaken where they are appropriate, and for this reason, the notice of motion is completely unnecessary and should be rejected. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Ashton. Are there any other members that wish to speak on this motion? Councillor Morgan.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Taylor talked about background checks. As I said before, I don't really know what the other parties do, but maybe just give you some enlightenment what happens within the Labour Party. To myself, I think the recruitment for the opposition is that if you like the council, no, all right, you're our candidate then. What we have to do, and what we've just gone through, we have to go through an interview process. We have background checks checked on us by the Labour Party. Our names, before they go on to what we call our panel of candidates, are then passed on to the council to be checked for any rent arrears, any council tax arrears, and any other information the council may have on that individual. And that also includes police checks. So we are checked before we were even allowed to go on the panel of candidates. So I don't know what your opposition party do, but we have our background checks done before we're even put on the panel.
Thank you for that, Councillor Morgan. Does anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do take somewhat offence to a motion to increase the safeguard within our borough being referred to as a tokenistic gesture, but it seems that certain members have come to the meeting quite agitated and ready to go. So what I will say is this, Councillor Ashton just mentioned that members who serve on our social scrutiny committees receive DBS checks, and a member of staff suggested that members of Health and Social Scrutiny Committee also receive checks. I've been a member of that committee now since May. No one's checked me. I've never received any notification. I'm very interested in what Councillor Morgan's got to say. I don't think rent arrears would disqualify somebody for standing for, certainly I don't think it would, in my opinion, disqualify somebody from standing for office. I'm also going to be really interested to find out how much the council spend on supporting the Labour Party group with its internal selection procedures, but I think that'll be an email for the future, so thanks very much.
Thank you, Fran. Okay, colleagues, we've had a discussion, we've had a debate on it. Well, Councillor Taylor, it's closed now, because I responded to that. So we're now going to go to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Thank you. All those against? Would anyone like to abstain? Thank you, the motion is now lost. Thank you. Item 12. Colleagues, I have no further items of business, and I thank you all for your attendance and now declare the meeting